there, everybody. It is Dr. Devin, and it is time for another episode of If They Knew. I can't wait. I love these conversations because I never know what's going to come up, but I know that on the other side of the conversation, there is a healthier me, a happier me, a more whole version of me, because you never know what spending a few minutes in conversation with another person, another warrior, another bright-souled human can do to take your life, your love, your experience in this grand adventure to the next level. So if you're ready, it's go time. It is Dr. Devin, and I'm super pumped in September 2021 to circle back around to connect with one of my favorite humans on the planet. Life journey is a funny thing, and we end up woven together with people who inspire us along the way. And this is a guy who I got to share in some really cool projects with, and who in a short amount of time, I got to learn a lot about, and who lives in a very different place than I do, that has probably had a wildly different experience over the last 18 months than I have. And that I think has very special magic within him that the whole world needs to hear. So I'm excited to invite and host my friend, Dr. Jordan Fairley.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And I know it's been a couple of years since we've really connected a lot more intimately with being able to share all the time together. So it's fun to be able to circle around and see all the amazing things that you're doing, and also be able to share on your podcast as well.
Yeah, so many things, right? So Jordan, can you tell people, like, what would your little elevator, who is Dr. Jordan? If I say, who are you? Where are you in the world? What's your response?
Yeah. You said it. My name is Dr. Jordan Fairley. I am a chiropractor. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a friend, athlete. I love to connect with nature, but I'm also the owner of the Source Chiropractic in Oakland, California. So in the San Francisco Bay Area, the COO of the Source Chiropractic franchise and COO of Kairos Training Culture, which is a performance training business for chiropractors, and now also is merging into welcoming into people from the general public, into allowing different offerings for people to connect further into themselves and be able to connect more with nature and the healing properties that has. Like you brought it up, I'm living in the San Francisco Bay Area, which, I've traveled a lot over the last year and a half, and there really isn't anywhere else like this right now. This is middle to end of September, and it's still very closed down, extremely judgment based, and it has this cloud around it of a lot of pressure, a lot of weighing on us, as in terms of like feeling scared and disconnected from humanity. A lot of people who still are, wearing masks every day, and every single kid out in public except for mine is wearing a mask. It's very, very different. It's very hard to be in this space, and I also know that it's not like this everywhere.
And like all that and the pressure that you reference has clearly yielded some diamonds, because you just listed off like the franchise, the general public offering, that you've taken over the Source, like, from bystander over here who stayed connected over social, like you've had massive growth during this time. Right. So part of like even me inviting is like, you've taken pressure very differently than some people have taken pressure, right? Like you clearly are tapped into some tools. You're tapped into some kind of awareness, some kind of trust that you could be in the center of the hurricane and grow and thrive. And so that's where I'm like, let me in that brain, let us all in there and share some of that goodness of like, how do you stay peaceful? How do you stay joyful? And we could pick 1,000 things, but I want you to pick one of those big ideas, right? What's one of the major premises that you operate, that you live from, that allows you to not just like one foot in front of the other, but to exponentially get to experience more life during this time?
Yeah, I'll say that the biggest thing for me is just recognizing and owning that I am in control of my health. I am in control of my mental sovereignty. I am in control of how I show up in the world. And ultimately, I'm in control of my own success. Mm-hmm. And so I think that a lot of people within their world has succumbed to generational patterning of being told that we're not responsible for our own health, that we're not responsible for life, what life throws at us, that we're not responsible for where we are at in terms of success or the things that we're wanting to achieve, or the positive or the negative things that come to us. I think a lot of people put that onto others rather than owning it, and also taking responsibility and trying to move forward just a little bit every single day and trying to get better. So one of the things you brought up was just noticing what you noticed with a lot of more of the business growth and success I've had over the last year and a half. For me, that was the easy part. It's really easy for me to dive into business, to always be thinking about how I can make our businesses grow, how we can continue to level up in terms of our offerings for our clientele and for our patients and for humanity. The hard part is what you've seen with me being more vocal outside of our business. So speaking about some of the things that are going on in the world that are more controversial, that has been extremely challenging. But I have been more vocal because I started to recognize that where I saw our society going was to a place where I didn't want for me and my family. And so when I was thinking about what the future looks like for my son, everywhere I was seeing and the steps that were being taken in terms of our the masks and the social distancing and the mandatory vaccines and not being able to go to events or not being able to go to a restaurant or not being able to even walk inside of a building without a vaccine, that is not how I want the world to be for my son. And so I just started to be more vocal. And the biggest hurdle that I had to get over with that is the negative pressure from my loved ones. So with friends and family and people that I've known for my entire life, I knew that I was going to receive a lot of negative criticism and telling me that I was harming others. And so once I got over that mentally, I was able to really take control again and start to be more vocal in a way that was most congruent with me. And so it's felt really good, but it's also been extremely challenging.
So let's go there, right? Like, because there's little micro traumas happening everywhere right now, right? Like purposefully, there is division and chaos that is starting little civil wars in friendships and in places of employment. And so talk to us about, how we could meet that with a little bit more grace and courage and get through it.
Yeah, I think it's first having the awareness and acknowledging that no two people are alike. That every single person comes from differing backgrounds. Everybody was raised differently. Everybody has a different form of communication, a different way that they perceive information. Everybody's receiving different information via online or newspapers or their friends or their families. So everybody has a different life experience, and they also have a different lens. And so to just put people in boxes and label them with one side of the spectrum of the different polarities that we're seeing is an easy way to go. And it's really easy to also then cement yourself into one perspective if you're doing that. So if you first at least recognize and acknowledge that everybody is different, then you are at least open to hearing a different perspective. One of the things that we're seeing right now is like, we see a red versus blue, or a liberal versus Republican, a you versus me, a vax versus unvaxxed, a right versus wrong, rather than knowing that it's a whole spectrum. It's not just two sides. And so one of my biggest gifts, I guess you could say, that I've developed over time, and one of my things that I would like to encourage other people to do, is to start to be really clear on just what you think, rather than what your affiliated parties think or what your friends or your family members think and are putting onto you. The more you can be really familiar with what you personally think, then you are going to be able to be open to other people's dialogue, as well as not be offended or hurt or scared or threatened when somebody has a different opinion. But yeah, I mean, that is probably one of the biggest things I would like to share with people is acknowledging it, being aware of it, and also recognizing really actually what is true for you, so that you can make decisions without being blown out of proportion with feeling like you're threatened or being hurt.
And it's, it's always been one of my favorite things about interactions with you and business conversations with you is your ability to feel things and be a very soulful driven human, but not be overrun with emotion and be able to have clear communication and approaches to that as well. I'm sure that skill set came before this and is now getting fine-tuned and serving you well. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you're at, right? I mean, like in that heartbeat of it. If we jump into, like you said, something about people being like, I'm in control of my health, right? For a lot of people, they're waking up to that in a whole new way now, right? Like, okay, my health, I create it. Like if we put some tools in their tool belt, if I said, all right, Dr. Jordan, give us a couple of things, tactical, practical, that people could be doing right now to be healthier and happier from a place of empowerment and control of the choices that they're making.
Yeah. In my opinion, the most important thing people could do is to have some type of ritualistic practice every single day where they are free from distractions and they can connect to themselves. And so this can look like a lot of different things. For me, and a lot of people I circle with would be a movement, breathwork, meditation routine every single morning before I pick up the phone. And so if I'm doing some type of movement to connect to my body, I'm able to break free from different tension and compression patterns. I'm able to feel myself and also feel good with myself. And then doing some type of breath work then opens up the lungs. It changes the perception of my body. And it also puts me in a different state of consciousness in order to receive. And then meditation, which a lot of people get weirded out by meditation. But meditation can just be being in this altered state because you just breathed a lot and maybe you're feeling a little bit lightheaded or something. And then you just sit with it and you're quiet and you're not thinking about what you have to do throughout the day. You're not thinking about what happened yesterday. You're not thinking about needing to grab your phone, but just allowing whatever thoughts do come through and to be aware of those thoughts and then let them go and see what else continues to come up. Having some type of practice like that will empower you by being able to connect with yourself. And so if you are more connected with yourself, you have the awareness of what you need. And so this can look like so many different things for people. It can be that you need to focus on your body because you have some type of ache or pain. And so if you at least become familiar with where that is and why that is, then you can start to implement different things or seek people in your life, like yourself, like a chiropractor, or like a yoga instructor, or like a nutritionist, or whatever it is. You then can get those needs met for your body. Maybe as you're doing this ritualistic daily practice, the main thing that comes up is I actually just really need to have this tough conversation with my spouse, right? And because I'm holding all this tension, I'm holding emotional stress, I'm not comfortable with our relationship because of this conversation I've been wanting to have. At least you now are aware of that and how that's affecting your body, right? And so whatever comes up through a daily ritual, you then can empower yourself because you're able to meet whatever your specific needs are. And you have the awareness of what those needs are. The next biggest thing is realizing that there's rarely anything in life that is like a quick fix, right? And so we talk about healing being one of those things. So I think we've gotten really used to in our society receiving things and having an impact immediately. So, we get information immediately. We can take a pill and all of a sudden feel something different immediately. That's not how healing or health happens. That's not how a lot of change in our lives actually happens. Everything happens through some type of practice. And so you need to practice, meaning something repetitive over time in which you're starting to change your body's patterns. And so if you're able to become aware, you're able to recognize what the needs are, you're able to start to act on whatever those needs are, and you're doing so repetitively in your life, you're then going to be able to create momentum in your life to create the change that you're ultimately wanting. And so that might be being healthier. That might be a better relationship with your wife and kids. It might be realizing that you don't like the job that you're in and you actually want to do something different. Being able to be aware, take action, and be able to do that repetitively will actually start to empower a lot more people along a process throughout their life that it ultimately brings them more fulfillment.
I love it. So many nuggets. I'm going to have you guys rewind because I'm going to have to. You can feel it, like just how like innate it's become through repetition. He mentioned very early on in this podcast that he's an athlete. He can throw these things as quickly and accurately because he's trained them and because they are ingrained in every cell of who he is. So I love the, healing's not an overnight process and no one's going to give it to you. You got to like lift the weight and eat the foods and like you said, generate enough momentum to sustain the change. So really, I think anybody could go back and just listen to what we've shared, and you're going to pick up so many things that could serve us all during this time. You also mentioned being a dad. And, I got 5 babies. I got a lot of stakes in the game, right, of the world I hand them and my grandbabies one day. Can you give us a message first to the parents out there that are scared for their kids, that are angry about all the things, that are, going to the school board meeting, that are navigating all the feels? If you had a call to the dads, right? I have a lot of conversations. I've invited a lot of mama bears on here, but if you could speak a breath of fresh air into the fathers out there, what would you say?
It's challenging because everybody comes from a different perspective, right? And so I imagine where you are at in the world, the fear people might be having is mandates on your kids, or not wanting your kid to go to school with a mask on their face all day, or the fact that maybe they're not even able to go to school, right? The fear that people might be experiencing here in our area is that they're going to send their kid to school and they're going to get sick and they're die, right? And so theirs is like the need for masks, the need for mandatory vaccinations, the need for this outside in approach. And so the needs are very different based on where you're at. What I would speak to for the dads is ultimately just to invite you to be more present with your kids, to put down your cell phones, to when your kid is there and they're tugging on your leg, or they're looking at you, or they're causing a fuss or a fit, or they're breaking something in the house. Usually it's because they're craving your attention and they want you to be present with them. And so if you can acknowledge that my kid is doing this because they really want me, then take action by putting down the phone, put the work aside, take the moment to be able to play with your kid. You'll be able to recognize how brilliant your kids are. And that every time they speak to you, or they're throwing a fit, or they're not feeling good, it's because they have some type of unmet need, right? And so the more you're actually presently spending time with them, again, you'll be able to recognize their needs, just like we talked about you recognizing your needs. And then you, as their parent, I hope we can empower all of you to start to take some type of action that you think is most in alignment for your kid. Not because you hear other parents say something, not because a school board is saying something, not because you read or heard something in the news, because you recognize that I know my kid the best out of anybody in the world. And I know what their specific needs are. And then it's your job as their father, or as their parent, or as their guardian, to act on those needs and speak on their behalf, because there's nobody else that can do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And just the wisdom in the answer, the approach to the answer, right? And guys, like, I want you to pay as close of attention to what he says, even deeper into how he says it, and the pause and the reflection and the awareness of, like, I'm not answering a simple black and white question. I'm answering in a global approach, because that allows for more peace and more progress to be had. Last question. Everybody that lives on planet Earth understands that we're clearly not through this healing experience yet. Might take a little while. Who knows how long? But if you could cast a vision, like you mentioned, that you looked at what the future was going to be for your son, and it helps pull you forward, right? What does the vision look like for humanity? I mean, you're involved in a lot of things, business and home-wise, to create this bright future. What do you see for humanity?
What I currently see is something that I don't want to be seen. And so what I hope for and what I'm working towards every day is a greater version of that, which that version to me is people who have more trust in the human body. That when we connect deeply to ourselves, when we recognize what our needs are, when we trust ourselves and nature and the power that animates all of us, that really we can be pretty limitless, right? And so we can be healthy without an outside in approach, without taking drugs, without needing surgery. We can be more connected to our friends and families without devices, without phones, without social media. We can be more successful when we're acting on things that feel right and feel empowered for us rather than just doing things because we think we have to do that thing. And it all comes from a trust and a knowing of self. And so my greatest hope is that people do some type of daily practice where they're constantly connecting to themselves. And by doing that, I imagine they'll find more trust in themselves as well. Where I see humanity going right now is further down a path of an outside-in approach, where we don't have the sovereignty of our own bodies. When we lose the sovereignty of our bodies, we lose the sovereignty of our minds. When we lose the sovereignty of our minds, we lose the sovereignty of who we are as a person. And so I don't want to see my son in a world where he is the only kid in his circle that has a connection to himself, right? Where he is the only person that really lives a life connected to the natural healing principles of health. So how he moves his body, how he nourishes his body, the things that he thinks and thinks about himself, the way he connects to source or spirit or nature, right? My hope is that he's not the only one that has those as guiding principles in his life. And so that all, again, happens from being able to connect with yourself on a daily basis, free from the distractions that are constantly being poured and brainwashing us. And by doing so, then I imagine we'll have a future that's greater connected to, again, trusting your own ability.
I love it. Mic drop. I mean, that's it, right? And now we just have to one day at a time, one breath at a time, get there. And so it is. I shared in a podcast earlier with a friend, Dr. Leslie Hiles, and she said, I used to get really overwhelmed at how to, what earth am I going to pass on to my kids? And now I just focus on what kind of kid am I going to give to the earth? And we can't control out there, but man, when you put all your stock in that little guy that God sent to this planet through you, wow, whole lot more fun and hope in that vision. Yeah. So now if anybody wants to connect with you or they have questions about these offerings that if they want to find a source, I know you guys have multiple locations. If they want to move and breathe and meditate, do you have any ways that they can connect with you?
Yeah, you can connect with me for as long as I'll be on Instagram before everybody's getting shut down these days. And I imagine I'm on a similar path where I may be shut down soon. But for now, you can find me Dr. Jordan Fairley at Instagram, on Facebook. I have some 1,000+ videos on YouTube. So if you're looking for movement, exercises, mobility, things that empower you in your health, you can find me on YouTube. The Source Chiropractic is ever expanding. We currently have 4 locations, but I'm currently in Oakland, California. And then the Move, Breathe, Meditate program is actually something I created with my best friend and business partner, Dr. Brett Jones. It's a 12-week program. You can find it at movebreathemeditate.com. And then also in a few weeks from now, we're going to be hosting a 6-week program for anyone and everyone on the Health Freedom Academy. And so 6 weeks, tons of different facilitators, 5 lessons a week with Q&As on the weekends, which would be including movement, breathwork, meditation, principles on health and healing, and also empowering people to be able to understand how they can communicate with others and get their own needs met so that they're not just being bombarded with information from the outside in, right? And so that'll be something we're starting on October 11th. But I would love to be able to chat with everybody. I've been getting 300+ messages a day on Instagram. So I would love for you to be one of them.
Yeah. Guys, reach out to him, stay connected to everything that they're doing. And, social might go away, but then it'll just force us to create something better. And you're a tech wizard. So I have faith that you will find a way. Thank you for your time, because I know you're in the middle of serving people. So we'll let you get back to your day. And guys, thank you for listening. There's so much in there in this little time capsule that I got to co-create with this beautiful human. So share it with somebody that needs to hear it. Go check him out on YouTube and his movement, and go get adjusted by this guy, because he's really probably one of the best adjusters in the country, if not the world. I really do mean that. And have him check your feet, because the guy is a wizard with completely fixed my foot that was screwed up for years. So giving that little plug. I love you. Please
Love you
send
too.
love to your wife and little boy and all of the Source Kairos crew. I get to
Yep.
see some of them at the Health Freedom for Humanity Symposium. So love you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much for doing this, for continuing to bring people on who speak a congruent message, and for everything you're doing for the world too.
Yeah, we'll see you soon, guys. Onward we go. We got this. So, mwah. Have a beautiful day.
Well, all right. So what's the one thing? What's the one thing that just lit up for you in this episode of If They Knew? Because it is one thing to listen or watch or feel your way through these conversations. And it is a whole different thing to grab a hold of something and turn it into action. It is a whole different thing to fire it and wire it and use it to create the health, to create the happiness, to create the life that you know is possible for you. And that's my highest hope here, my friends. So what's the one thing? What's the one thing you learned that you didn't know? What's the one thing that you can take and apply right here, right now? And you know, maybe it's not for you. Maybe the reason that you tuned in today is so that you could share it on to somebody else. Maybe there's a friend or a family member or a coworker, and throughout this episode you thought, she needs to hear this, or, oh my gosh, this would really help him. Share it, right? That is how we weave together this tapestry of light and hope and power and potential beyond our wildest dreams, because we have a choice in how we engage in these wild times, my friends. And for me, I choose healing. I choose growing. I choose thriving. I choose the light. And you must too, or you wouldn't be here. So I hope that I get to meet you and hug you and see you at the Big Idea 2022. So make sure you check the description to mark your calendars for that. And yeah, if you can't wait till April of 2022 and you want to come play with a community like this, like the episode you just got to watch, then you need to join Shine. That is the community space, the playground, the training ground that we have created. If you want to be a part of a revolution of the light workers, the truth seekers that take responsibility for their health, that step into the if it is to be, it's up to me mentality and grit, well, Shine is for you. So I'm here for you. I love you. I can't wait till the next episode. Please, if you have any requests or I can support you in any way, engage in the comments, shoot me a message. This is it, y'all. This is the time. We were born for such a time as this. I love you. I'll see you soon.